Hi, I'm Darren. I'm one of the Queensland Transport approved boat safe training providers, and today we're going to walk you through all the major parts on a boat. So today, rather than starting with the new boat, we've decided to use a second-hand boat that probably most of you are probably in the market for and looking at possibly buying. So we're starting at the front of the boat, which is called the bow, and we're going to run through everything that's up the forward end of the vessel. So here we are at the front of the boat, which is called the bow. Up on the bow we have the bow sprit, which holds the anchor out. We have bow rail. Not every vessel has it, but it's kind of handy if you've got one. We then also have the gunnel edge, which runs all the way around the top edge of the boat. It got its name hundreds of years ago, where the old pirates used to hang the guns on the sides of the ships, blow the other guys out of the water. We slang it a bit now in the gunnel. So down closer to the water, we actually have the chine, which is where the bottom sheets meet the side sheets, and some particular boats even have a welded on piece to the chine as a spray deflector to keep the boat nice and dry for you. In the centre here we have the keel line, runs all the way down through the centre of the boat to the rear of the boat. Back up at the bow we have two main sides of the vessel. We have the port side being the left hand side, and at night red in colour on its light. Right hand side of the vessel, starboard side, and at night the light colour, green. Nice easy way that I always remember. Port's got 4 letters in it, and so's left. Okay, so freeboard is actually the height of the sides, measured from the water line to the lowest part, whether it's the gunnel edge or if you have a motor cut out at the rear of the boat. These are the rego numbers. They actually have to go both sides of the vessel on a planing capable vessel, minimum height of 200 mil high, and you'll notice here that the sticker cutter guy has used that policy, minimum 200 mil, but with the font he's selected, the rest of the numbers are actually under 200 mil, which wouldn't be legal. So over on the exterior port side, you must have the rego label, which is your month of registration sticker. So leaving the bow, we come to the rear of the boat, which is called the stern. And the key features on the stern is the transom. Let's go and have a look. So the transom is the stern's cross section. This is where your outboard bolts to. We also have draft. Draft is the depth of the vessel below the waterline, measured vertically to the lowest part of the hull, the propeller, or other reference point like the keel. We also have the bungs, which we should always put the bungs in. Obviously, before we put the boat in the water, let's do that. We also have here the sounder transducer. This reads how deep the bottom is, and it also has the speed of the vessel on this little paddle wheel. So kind of critical that that's free and working and not damaged. You have to be careful when you come into the shoreline that you don't bend that up or break it off. So to make life really easy, most of the manufacturers on their big outboards put the tilt and trim button just here on the side to make it nice and easy. When you're finished with the boat, you can tilt the motor up, ready to tow it down the road. If you lift it all the way up, put that little motor support there, trim him down, tie down strap on, you're down the road. So some key features we've got here: the propeller. You want to make sure the locking nut has the pin through it and the tabs are bent over to stop that nut from coming undone. So above the propeller we have, on this particular model, the sacrificial anode, which will minimise the corrosion throughout the engine, but it has a dual purpose. It'll actually take the torque out of the steering if you adjust this to the perfect angle. One of the most critical features on the gearbox is the water pickups. Always make sure they're clean and not blocked, and they're certainly in the water before you start the motor. Down the bottom here we have the skeg. Pretty common on a boat ramp. If you haven't got the motor trimmed up like I have it now, putting it in the water, you can bust it off, or if you forget to lift the motor up when you pull out from the boat ramp, it's easy to lop it off. So now that we're on the deck of the boat, let's go over here and have a look at a couple of the things that the boat's got. This is a cleat. I wouldn't tow from this particular cleat. Someone's fitted that. Good for a little rope. Where I would tow from is the ski hook here. There's one on both sides. This has a nice little edge on the bow rail. We've also got some rod holders here. We've got a good bimini top. If we walk forward through the boat, there's a couple of aerials for the radios, which we'll go through in a sec. Right up to the bow of the boat again, where we've got our nav lights, our port side left and red, starboard side green, and a little bit forward back up the bow we have the anchor. We also have the cleat where we tie the anchor off. It can be 2 horns or a cross. Comes back into the anchor well. We've got some life jackets under there. We've also got a life jacket sticker now to tell us that's where they are. Coming round to the center of the console, underneath the seat, we have the batteries, dual batteries in this boat. We've got a battery isolator switch. Always make sure it's off at home and make sure it's in both while the engine's running, so it charges back to both. Make sure you've got good terminals that are clean and nice and tight. So this boat's actually fitted with an underfloor fuel tank, and this is where we fill it from. Make sure you keep fresh fuel up to the boat. Fuel seems to go off in about 3 months in this day and age. So another critical part of the fuel system is the fuel breather, which is down here, normally fitted on the outside of the vessel to eliminate any build-up of fumes inside the boat. Always make sure it's not blocked, and that way it'll eliminate any chance of fuel pressure building up, which can be dangerous. So let's go over to the helm and check out what's there. So up at the helm, we have the steering, we have the controls to push forward to go into forward gear, push this forward on this model, neutral, and to pull back to go to reverse, simply pull this one back. A lot of the outboard brands actually have a locking device with a button underneath or on the side. This particular model, just have to be nice and easy and gentle with it. We also have a GPS, we have a sounder, we have a compass, full instrumentational including voltmeter, our fuel gauge, we have the RPM gauge, and we also have the trim and tilt gauge on the angle of the motor. And just from the button here we can trim the motor up and down to get the perfect angle to get the boat to ride better. We also have in fact 2 radios in this boat. We have a 27 meg, which channel 88 is the radio station on 27 meg for emergencies, and down below here we also have the VHF radio, which has a greater distance, channel 16 for emergencies on the radio. We've got our switch panel, which covers all our navigational lights. It's got a live bait tank in this boat. It also has the bilge pump, which not only is an auto bilge pump, but a manual override switch here as well. So this is the key where we start and stop the motor from. Also we have the safety switch. You should run that clip to yourself in case at speed you actually are thrown out of the vessel. It'll pull that out and it'll kill the motor and stop the boat from driving away from you. We also have the carrying capacity label, which must be visible to the operator, listing how many people this boat's legally able to carry. So what I'd like to point out, this boat was built prior to 2006 and was never fitted with an Australian builder's plate. What it does have is a manufacturer's plate just over here on the rear of the boat, which actually lists its maximum horsepower, but it doesn't have anything about carrying capacities. So this is why up on the helm, anything prior to 2006 must have a Queensland Transport approved carrying capacity label, which is just here. It must be visible to the operator so everyone knows its maximum load and it can't be overloaded. So here we have, between the deck of the boat and the bottom of the boat, the bilge. And recommended, I reckon, put a big bilge pump in it, which will pump out any excess water if you're ever to take water on board. I'd always check it before I head it out to sea, make sure it's functional, make sure there's no blockages. It's a great safety feature in a boat. So here we have the fuel line connection. Make sure it's clipped onto the engine nice and tight. The primer bulb, good tip on a primer bulb, never try to prime it flat, always have it up and down. That way the 2 balls inside will actually make it do its job correctly and get all the fuel to the motor even before we try to start the engine. I'd always trace back, check all the connections back through. This particular boat under here's got a fuel filter. I'd also make sure the connections are nice and tight and that you've maintained on that changing of the fuel filter regularly. So in a little tinny where you don't have a steering wheel, this is the tiller steer. By steering it left and right maneuvers the boat, and it even has manual tilt. You actually have to lift it up. Just like that, and drop it back down. So here we have an Australian builder's plate which are fitted to boats built after July 2006, which lists maximum horsepower that the manufacturers stated to run on this vessel. It also lists maximum carrying capacity for your passengers. Please note, kids under 12 are actually classed as half an adult. Another good thing to remember is most engine manufacturers have a servicing schedule that is required for your maintenance on the outboard, so make sure you're within that perimeters and get it serviced annually by someone qualified, even right through to the safety gear. Some sorts of safety gear have servicing requirements or they have dates of expiration. Make sure that they're within date and you've had them serviced up to that standard. It's all about safety. So with anchoring, before you throw the anchor out, make sure that the shackle pin is nice and tight and moused off with something so it doesn't unwind and you lose your anchor. Also with your anchor rope, make sure it's in good condition and it hasn't got any sun damage or any salt damage, and it's frayed or anything. It's in a great working condition. That way you won't have a problem with the braking. So every boat needs a little toolkit. Let's run through and see what some basic tools would include. I'd actually carry a spare fuel filter. I'd carry a spare set of spark plugs, an emergency pull start cord, some sort of cutting device like a basic pair of scissors, and here we have the basic manufacturer's toolkit that most outboards have, with the basic range of spanners, the spark plug socket, and a little screwdriver set as well. So we got things pretty much basically covered, and lo and behold, the spare key. Another good consideration with safety, when you're driving the boat along, make sure you've spread the weight out even. Don't have all passengers one side. Make sure you've got the boat nice and level before you take off, so while you're running along it sits nice and level and gives the boat the most amount of stability, and it's the safest option for everyone.